Well, I'm with Linda Hochstetler, and you are part of a Death Cafe network that you've built over the last decade. Please, for someone who doesn't know what a Death Cafe is, just explain that first.
So a death cafe is really just a casual place to talk about anything related to dying and death. Now, it's not my idea. I've been working with death cafes in Toronto for 10 years, but it's really a global movement, one that started in London, England by John Underwood. And it's like John knew that his life was short. He died at the age of 44. And prior to that, he set up this movement. And he really believed that we need to take death out of the closet. We need to take it into the public. And we need just to be, given simple, easy ways to actually talk about death in whatever kind of way we can. He recognized that we don't talk about death over dinner. We don't talk about death with our friends and family. And so this movement was actually set up as a way to give people a casual way to talk about death anonymously in public places. So a couple of months ago, less than a year ago, the Toronto Public Library approached me and said, we think we have a location for you. You can have any library you want in the city. Would you like to run some death cafes for us? I chose one, asked my group of people who've been attending death cafes, and a number of them have signed up, and we're leading death cafes in Toronto Public Library system over the next couple of years. And so we're delighted to have the Toronto Public Library as a host for us, because this is really the heart of what John would have liked. That the whole Death Cafe movement was set up so that it would be accessible. There wouldn't be any sort of stigma in terms of going to the place where they gather, and that we could continue to talk about dying and death.
Now, is your background in social work, or how did you come to create this movement?
So my background is in social work, and I've been a grief therapist for 30 years. I happen to have joined the club of having someone close to me die, and I was 22 years old when a boyfriend died overnight in a bicycle accident. And I joined this club that no one wants to join and decided to work in grief therapy. And I did that for a number of years, and then really felt like too much of grief therapy is after the fact when you can't really change anything. And I really wanted to move further up the river and to talk about death earlier. So it didn't have to come afterwards. And that's when I found the Death Cafe movement, because death cafes are about talking about it when you're young. And people might be surprised to know that the people who attend death cafes are often quite young, in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, a handful over that. But there's a lot of young people that feel like there's nowhere else to talk about death. So I use my social work hat, where I will deal with illness, dying, and death in my social work private practice, which is how I make a living. That's what I specialize in. But what I really would like to do is get the public education out to encourage people to have opportunities to talk about death in other settings.
Now, I notice you have a book here. If you could maybe point to it, and we can get you to talk about this a bit. 21 Days to Die. In essence, what is this book really about, and who does it help?
So 21 Days to Die was based on the idea that the average length of time that someone spends in a residential hospice, from the time they enter to the time they die, is 21 days. That's the average. Some people it's shorter, some people it's longer. So when I say 21 days, it is an average. But it's the idea that there is something that happens in a very uniform pattern, and people die in the same stages, and it follows from extreme fatigue, and then you can't get out of bed, and you lose all capacity for walking. That includes walking to the washroom, and then you can't eat, and the muscles in your throat stop swallowing, and then you can't drink, no water, and then you die, no breathing. And these are the same stages that everyone goes through. And so I describe these stages for the loved ones, because it's often loved ones that don't know what to do with the dying person. The dying people, they know how to die. They're just doing their thing. They've been programmed. Human beings know how to die. But it's our loved ones that are often not sure. And because they aren't sure, they often make really bad decisions. They often try to force feed people at end of life. They try to extend the life by doing treatments when the person is actually dying and there's no reversal. So this book is actually about those 21 days, and they help you prepare for it. They help you make the best decisions possible. They help you say the most precious things you want to say to your loved one, so that when the last breath happens, everyone's ready, and everyone has seen it, everyone has sort of like faced it, and there's a lot less grief counseling that has to happen afterwards if you can make really good decisions and be together in these precious 21 days and not just count backwards and go, oh, I missed it, I didn't know what was going on. Because unfortunately, we can't count on the healthcare system to tell us when we're in those 21 days. So this book is a bit of a guide. It's one that I encourage people to read before you need it. Don't wait till you're 21 days from your own death or someone else's, but you read it in advance so you know and you recognize, and you can then face death in a fearless kind of way.
Well, Linda, I think it's an excellent book for people to get in touch with. How do they do that? How do they find this book?
You can find it on my website. My website is my name. It's a bit difficult to spell, but if you can figure out the spelling part, it's lindahochstetler.com. That's LINDAHOCHSTETLER.com. And then there's a book tab, and there's a link to my publisher. You can also find it on Amazon. You can find it in public bookstores, but I encourage you to read it sooner rather than later.
Thank you so much, Linda. Pleasure.
Thanks, Michael.